Welcome back to the Solid Verbal Boys and Girls. Ty Hildenbrand here, Dan Rubenstein over there. Solidverbal@gmail.com is our email address. You can also hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/solidverbal, as well as on Twitter. Of course, our handle is at solidverbal. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Ty. How you doing?
I'm good. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in my childhood bedroom in the San Fernando Valley, just north of Los Angeles, and I feel fantastic.
Just north of the San Fernando Valley? Is that what you said?
I'm in the San Fernando Valley, which is it's the valley.
Okay.
I don't care about Lehigh. You live in the Lehigh Valley. This is the valley.
Okay. Well,
there's a distinct.
It's good to have you back in your old childhood bedroom. This is where we started the show.
This is correct.
Okay.
Normally, I wasn't doing the show in this room. Occasionally, I would. But yes, this is L.A. to P.A., like our original shirt indicated.
Okay. Well, lots going on. There's a royal baby, and I got to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I made the same Lane Kiffin joke as everybody. When I woke up this morning, I saved it in the drafts. You know how on Twitter you have the drafts thing? That folder if you think of something and you want to save it for later. I did that. And I was late to the punch when this kid was born. I sent out the tweet, and some folks chimed back, said, hey, that joke was 10 minutes ago. I went back and did a search. There were like 18 people who made the Lane Kiffin joke, Dan.
It's a baby boy, correct?
It's a baby boy. I was quite disappointed here. I thought I was onto something, and now I find out, no, in fact, everyone else had the joke too.
Yeah, there are a lot of college sports angles, but the Lane Kiffin offer is probably the best one. There's like, if it were a girl, it would be like, oh, Bruce Pearl is dating her.
Right, exactly.
If it were a girl, it'd be like, oh, she was just offered a job by Scout.com.
Right.
Like there are numerous ways to go about that, but no, it is the offer thing with Lane Kiffin. Les Miles and Nick Saban are offering early, but yeah, old Laney Pooh.
Little disappointed by that, but okay. Anyway, here's the deal. Tonight we're trying something new. I can see people are listening. We already have a caller on the line.
Yes.
If he or she is listening, we'll get to you momentarily. Here is the way this works tonight. 408-VERBAL-1 is the phone number. If you'd like to dial in, 408-VERBAL-1. Keep trying if the line is busy. This is going to be an extremely low-budget call-in type of operation.
I'm okay with this.
You'll hear a phone ring in the background. We don't care. That's the way this is going to go down. This is the first time ever we're able to do a call-in show. We're both pretty excited about it. And depending on how this goes, we may or may not do it again at some point in the future.
Correct.
So, point being, don't be a dick. Does that sound good to you?
That's a general life piece of advice that I think everybody should adhere to, especially if you play for the Ohio State University.
Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
Okay. Very quickly before we get to our first caller, we are brought to you tonight. Get this one. By Fox Television.
Yeah.
Just when you thought animation couldn't get any weirder, go ahead and just leave it to Fox. On Saturday, July 27th, Fox will introduce ADHD, Animation Domination High Def. It's a brand spanking new block of late-night television. Late-night animated television, mind you. First, they've got two new shows. First, Out of the Darkness. One hero will swing into action. He'll save your world from the forces of evil, from the creators of Parks and Recreation and the mind of a 5-year-old. It is the new animated series Axe Cop starring Nick Offerman. Then, school is starting early, and you've never seen a class this wrong. It's the new animated series High School USA. It's all part of ADHD. Again, that is Animation Domination High Def. The revolution premieres in late night with all new animated series Axe Cop and High School USA. Your weekends just got a whole lot weirder. The fun starts on Saturday, July 27th, only on Fox Late Night, Dan. So there you have it.
It'd be good if Urban Meyer hired Axe Cop to sort of wherever he goes in college football, to just have that option, just an aggressive enforcer of rules and regulations.
That's it, man.
That feels like the right tie-in.
All right. Well, as we said, without further ado, this is a call-in show. Again, 408-VERBAL-1 if you'd like to get in on the fun. And
easy.
I believe we have a phone caller on the line right now. Hello, sir, or ma'am. You are on the line. How are you? Okay, maybe not. How about that? Already we've got we've already got some technical woes. We had someone on the line. He probably just got tired of waiting. So in the meantime, until we get our next call, and I know there are people who want to. So again, 408 Verbal 1, do dial on in. Let's talk about the Urban Meyer stuff. The Urban Meyer stuff that broke a little bit earlier today. Now, it isn't Urban Meyer stuff. That's not fair to say it's Urban Meyer stuff, right? We don't want to say it's
not.
His
He's
fault.
Associated with it because he runs that program and has been in the news, but yes.
It's just a little too close for comfort because, as you know, Urban Meyer's been in the news somewhat recently because of some transgressions of one Aaron Hernandez and some reports that leaked about what Hernandez might have gotten into when he was down in Gainesville. Now, again, this isn't Urban Meyer's fault per se with what we're seeing
definitely
up at Ohio State, but some more troubling news now coming from players on his team. I guess the most notable of which, because he's getting booted from the team, Carlos Hyde, who appeared to be the starting running back headed into the 2013 season.
Right? Ooh, we have a phone call.
We do have a phone caller, but that's pretty troubling, right?
Yeah, it is extraordinarily troubling, especially since Bradley Roby, considered to be a first-round talent at corner, also got nabbed for an unrelated situation.
All right.
I believe.
We've got a caller on the line. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, you?
We are doing well. Who's calling?
This is Zed from Eugene, Oregon.
All right, so we've got a duck on the line here, our first ever caller on the show.
Well, just because he's in Eugene, Oregon, does not make him a duck.
Does that make you a duck? Are you a duck?
It definitely makes me a duck. Hell yeah, It makes me a duck.
Okay, well, that's fair. So what's on your mind, sir?
Okay, so I'm thinking NCAA 14 right now. Just came out.
Okay.
With DeAnthony Thomas being unstoppable in that game, and with the ability to quit the game if he gets injured, would this be the best Ducks team ever to be able to play on 14?
Wow.
It's a good question.
What do you think, Dan?
I think it probably is, just because of the depth of talent to this team, especially at the quarterback position, giving you that dual. It's a video game offense. It's much more of a video game offense than it probably has ever been since the early part of Dennis Dixon. But in that case, Jonathan Stewart was very good, but didn't have like that video game ability of DeAnthony in multiple roles. So I'm going to say, you have the game-breaking receivers. You have the young Braylon Addison and Josh Huff, and then DeAnthony, coupled with the rest of the speed on offense. I think it probably is the best video game Oregon team to date.
Let me ask you this. How much I know you wrote the review for Polygon on NCAA 14. Did you happen to look at what Mariota's speed is in the game?
I don't remember. What is it?
I don't know offhand. Do you know? Do we know?
I have no idea.
Okay, so
I think he was underrated. He wasn't one of the top 10 players.
Okay.
I think he should have been top 10.
Here's what it is though, Ty. It's the zone read is so nice in this new game.
It's so really good. And I played someone online last night, and we've made the joke several times, but it was probably like a 13-year-old Korean boy somewhere who was playing NCAA.
Right. And that makes up most of your social circle.
Sure. It just
smoked me.
Smoked me with Johnny Manziel. And
really?
I couldn't stop the pass. So my thinking is if you've got a guy who's mobile in that game, who can throw the football with any amount of speed or accuracy, why even bother defense? Why even bother?
It's
unstoppable.
Like that's how it is in real life.
It's not that bad.
You look at the last few. I mean, even though Alabama won the national championship these past couple seasons, aside from the most dominant offensive line play of the last 8 or 10 years, it's Cam Newton, it's Johnny Manziel. This is not an accident that those guys are dominant.
It's not an accident, but I'm saying my defense, as it is typically in the video game, I looked like 2012 Tennessee out there. It was that bad.
Well, if Alabama had the best defense last season and Johnny Manziel was able to do that against them, doesn't it feel like it's pretty representative?
I guess. I don't know. I was just very disgruntled. I lost by 7.
It happens.
All right, so we had an NCAA 14 question. We got anything else from you?
I don't know. I want to say go Ducks.
Go Ducks?
Go Ducks.
Go Ducks as your parting shot. All right, well, thanks for calling in, and we hope to talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
Take care. All right, first caller ever, Eugene, Oregon Duck.
I like that. All right, so Ty, let me ask you something with the Ohio State stuff. We have Big 12 Media Day as well. I think it's also Mountain West Media Day today in Vegas. I think I saw writers talking about that.
And everybody's talking about Mountain West Media Day.
Mountain West Media Day.
Right.
What's up, Bob Davie? Is he in the Mountain West, Bob Davie? Or
New
is he
Mexico.
In the WAC?
New Mexico, wherever they're from. I believe that's the WAC.
Okay. Here's my question to you, though, about the Urban Meyer situation.
Yes.
To what degree is the way in which Urban Meyer runs a program, can that be pointed to for Ohio State's troubles in the last day? Because essentially he gets all the guff about his time at Florida, all the arrests, all the situations that arised in Gainesville. He is the one that oversaw that program. He is the one that set the boundaries, set the rules, told the team, if you do X, Y, or Z, these are the consequences, and kids continue to do them. Now, in Ohio, I would assume he's running the Ohio State program as a probably more disciplined version of what he did at Florida. You would assume
one would hope. He had a lot of arrests at Florida.
Right. He would sort of press his foot against the necks of discipline even more so in Columbus.
That was great.
So
that was good.
So my question to you is, how much is it fair, if at all, to say, because Urban Meyer didn't punch or elbow a young lady at a club, as is being alleged of Carlos Hyde.
Right.
He did not do that. He did not whisper in his ear, go do that to this person. And I don't know the situation. I don't know the context of what happened, but it was almost an immediate, you're gone.
Yeah.
After the news broke. So he's off the team. So Urban Meyer obviously is acting more swiftly than he is known to have done in the past.
Right.
This is the longest question I've ever asked.
It's
how
pretty
much
long.
How much do you put this on Urban?
I don't put a lot of it on Urban. And I think it's kind of I don't want to say it's a coincidence, because then people are going to say, look at Florida, right? Look at what happened down at. I don't want to say it's a coincidence, but in fairness, he hasn't been there all that long. And also, in fairness, you can't attribute...
He did not recruit Carlos Hyde.
Right, and you can't attribute everything that goes wrong off the field to Urban Meyer from this point forward. Now, just because everyone has that spotlight on him, I don't think that's fair either. So,
correct.
Again, I think I need more data. I think I need to look forward and say, all right, 3 years from now, is this sort of an issue at Ohio State, like maybe we're learning about it was down at Florida? But for right now, I don't think we can really say any of it's his fault. To be honest with you, it's just it's bad timing is what it is, because all the Hernandez stuff just came out, and and you hope that he can run a tighter ship at Ohio State. But today is not great in terms of news on that front. So, all right, we do have another caller on the line. I did look it up, by the way. New Mexico's in the Mountain West. You were right.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
All right, caller. Hello, this is Ty and Dan. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Good. Who's on the line with us?
This is Will from Birmingham.
Will from Birmingham, the Deep South. Does that make you an Alabama fan?
That makes me an Auburn fan.
Oh,
Close
Auburn.
enough.
Okay. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
What's on your mind?
I am calling to see what coach in the SEC you guys think is most likely to let go at the end of this next football season.
Wow.
It's a good question.
They just got a bunch of new coaches, too.
They have a bunch of new coaches.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Because all the teams you would think are going to have a bad year just got a new coach, so you'd think they're going to be around next year.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. We can start from the top on down.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban will not be let go.
No.
Gus Malzahn will not be let go. All right. He just got hired by his old school. So that clearly is not going to happen. Tennessee has a new coach this year. Butch Jones is not going to be let go anytime soon. I don't think the only way Steve Spurrier's being let go is if he retires. So that's not going to happen.
Right.
I am trying to think.
That's 14 coaches to choose from here.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's Pinkel is the answer.
Pinkel or Mullen, frankly.
Pinkel has to be.
Mullen could have a really bad season.
Just by default, I think the answer is probably Pinkel. And, you read a lot about Mississippi State. There's a real chance that they could have a down year as well. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, though.
There has to be another Arkansas or Auburn this year, I would think.
Yeah, I mean,
right,
otherwise, it's tough to pick a team.
Yeah, Pinkel's the number one, and Mullen's probably the number two, but it would take like a 6-6, 5-7 year from Mullen. And it would also, you always like to say Mark Richt has lost control.
Right.
If Georgia were to really tank and not have significant injuries, but for whatever reason go 6-6, that could be a sneaky one. But I really don't think that's happening. I think there's a big drop off after Pinkel and possibly Mullen. Even Mullen, I put it about like a 27% chance. Pinkel's like at a 78.
Let me ask you this, Will, because you're the resident Auburn fan on the line with us here, but we made a pretty big deal about the fact that Gus Malzahn was coming back to coach Auburn, and I guess the way that I know I at least portrayed it was such that Auburn fans are excited. Auburn fans are excited just from some of the scuttlebutt that came in us. People are excited about this. They're revved up. They want this guy back in town. As an Auburn fan, was that your reaction, or is it more measured now after the Gene Chizik thing went horribly wrong and Auburn had the kind of year last season that it did?
I would say a little more measured. It was the most appropriate hire at the time, but it came on the heels of Brett Bielema being hired at Arkansas, which is a little more exciting than Gus Malzahn hire. But then I thought about after the 2010 season, I had a feeling it would be heading south. And when I was asked would I rather have Gene Chizik or Malzahn, I always said Malzahn. And here we are with no Gene and plenty of Malzahn. So I guess I'm pleased. I guess I'm happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Gene Chizik didn't quite work out, as you know. And
that's correct.
Auburn fans weren't very excited when they found out they got Gene Chizik. So hopefully, for your sake, despite the fact that he did win a national championship because he had Cam Newton, among others, hopefully now that this Gus Malzahn thing has happened, it can work out a little bit better for you long term.
Let me ask you this. What's your name again? Will in Birmingham?
Will, yes.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Will. What is the win ceiling with the current quarterback situation?
The what feeling? I'm sorry?
The win ceiling. Can they get to 8 wins with the quarterbacks showing what they were able to show or not show last season?
I'm thinking 6 and 7, maybe.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, maybe
I think 6.5 is the over/under.
Would get us to 7. Yeah.
6.5 feels right. There's just too much uncertainty there, and Gus Malzahn I think will get him there, Dan, but it's going to take a little bit.
The 6 wins?
No, he'll get them there, and by there I mean this prophetic place above 6 wins. He'll get them there in due time. In the meantime, I think 6 wins is probably 6, 7 wins, 8 in a dream season. That's probably a more realistic expectation.
Every break, every big bounce goes Auburn's way. Yeah.
Right. So, Will in Birmingham, thank you for calling.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. All right, Will in Birmingham, our Auburn fan calling in. We've had a Eugene, Oregon guy and a Birmingham guy.
Yeah, 2010 BCS championship. Stand up.
So let me ask you this. You're out in California. You had the long plane ride. As we get another caller here ringing.
Yeah.
Whom we'll get to just momentarily. But let me ask you this.
Sure.
It is that time of year. We're mid to late July now. It's sort of that time and place when you and I go into full-on cram mode for college football. And even though we follow it in the off season, we try to review as much material as we can in the build-up to the season to catch anything we might have missed. And I know we read a lot of the same guys, the Bill Conleys of the world, the Paul Meyerbergs of the world. We read these guys through and through. What kind of stuff in your studies are you finding that maybe you missed previously? Because I know you read this stuff, Dan. I know you. Right. I know you read this stuff. What is it so far of the stuff that you've read that really jumped out at you as we move forward into this new season? Are there any nuggets?
There aren't. There's always things where you forget about how good like Rutgers was up front against the run. Things like that. Just like the random talents, and you got to look deeper into context. Obviously, their schedule wasn't the hardest, and Arkansas was down last season. Those kinds of things. I think the big thing is just remembering, since there's so much information, so much changes during the spring, so much changes during recruiting, all the influx of talent. And yeah, I forget some of the recruits that are coming in. You forget about like the 5- and 4-star guys that are coming in to reinforce linebacking cores or wide receiver cores or new quarterbacks that are going to compete or transfers. It's almost like the sitting down and sorting everything out that you knew at one point.
Sure.
And it's just reinforcing. I think that's the big thing in trying to soak up all this information.
One interesting tidbit I found from Paul Meyerberg, and he ranks Maryland as his number 66 team.
I told you, surprise team.
Surprise team, right. I was going to say much to your point. But he has a tidbit in here. Now, for those who listen to us or just follow any ACC or national college football as a whole, if you follow any of that, you know that Maryland had horrible luck with its quarterback situation.
Correct.
4 guys went down for the season, 3 of which had torn ACLs. At one point, they were forced to start a true freshman linebacker at quarterback by the name of Sean Petty.
As you do.
Here is what Paul Meyerberg writes about Mr. Petty, which I found very, very interesting and often doesn't get mentioned. I'll read this off very quickly, then we'll get to our call. He says, with all this talk of the true freshman linebacker, a quick note about Sean Petty. The aforementioned quote-unquote true freshman linebacker threw for 6 touchdowns in his 4 November starts. That total tied him with Florida State's E.J. Manuel and Virginia's Michael Rocco for 6th most in the ACC. Petty, a true freshman linebacker, threw for more touchdowns, in November than Virginia Tech's Logan Thomas, Wake Forest's Tanner Price, and Boston College's Chase Reddick. Put another way, Petty had 1 fewer touchdown pass in November than Iowa's James Vandenberg compiled in 389 attempts in 2012. So I guess the point here is that that's pretty amazing, and maybe maybe he didn't do as poorly as you might think when you look at the roster and see that he's a true freshman linebacker.
No, that's an incredible number. That's an incredible stat. I didn't realize, and I think just to bigger picture it, it's going to be a nice year for Maryland.
It's going to be okay. All right, we've got a caller. Hello, sir. How are you?
You guys hear me?
We can. Who's calling?
Loud and clear.
It's Mike from Philly.
Mike from the Mean Streets? No, this isn't Mike from the Mean Streets, is it?
No.
This is a different Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? I was the guy that got booted earlier.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. Thanks for hanging in with us. What's up?
Yeah.
We're having some trouble. I don't know if Mike can still hear us. Can you still hear us, Mike?
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah,
you might have
you are.
A wonky cell connection there. What's up?
Sorry about that. So I was wondering, every year there's a team that kind of comes out of nowhere to contend for the national title. Last year, I'm thinking like Kansas State, Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you guys seen making that jump this year, kind of out of nowhere?
Wow.
Ty, do you have a team?
Out of nowhere. Is South Carolina out of nowhere? Does that count?
Yeah,
I would say
sort of, maybe.
Somewhat. They were in the SEC championship game, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, South Carolina's the first one that comes to mind. I'm sort of half inclined to say UCLA, even though I don't really believe it.
Vegas does not like UCLA.
Vegas does not like UCLA at all. Gosh, I'm trying to think who else here. And most of them are name brand teams from the SEC, but South Carolina never seems to get the kind of publicity that it should. And they have a really good team coming back this year. They've got questions, but I do like South Carolina a fair amount, especially in the SEC East. So that's mine, Dan. What do you think?
Well, they were in the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. I think TCU, if they have the best defense probably in the Big 12. They have Casey Paul Hall coming back. They have a lot of offensive weapons coming back. Stanley Mapunga misses that LSU game, the star defensive end. But I feel pretty confident that TCU is a more complete team than most of the teams in the Big 12, so they could find their way into that discussion. Other than that, ACC-wise, nothing. There are early positivities about Georgia Tech. The further away you get from Al Groh, but as a national championship contender, no. Miami would be mine, which is weird to say as with the program winning a national championship about a decade ago, but from where they've been recently in that 7-8 win territory to be competing in middle to late November, I think Miami could be that team.
Wow. Okay. What about Texas?
That offensive line is really good.
Should we throw Texas in there just for the sake of it?
You can. I
don't want to. I'm asking what you think of Texas.
Yeah, they certainly are talented enough with the offensive skill guys. They're deep at receiver, deep at running back. David Ash has the possibility to be a B-plus quarterback, and you can win the national championship with a B-plus quarterback. Don't trust the defensive depth. Don't trust Manny Diaz after last season. Love Quandre Diggs, but losing what they lost in the secondary with Kenny Vaccaro. I think if you are going to come out of the Big 12 and compete for the national championship, it has to be a situation like Oklahoma had in 2007 or 8 with Sam Bradford. Has to be where Texas was in 2009, where everything is clicking. You're a complete team with no questions, and that's just not the case with any team, I feel like, in that conference. So other than that, Big Ten, really hate Nebraska having a new D-line, especially after how bad they were on defense last year. Michigan State could put things together on offense. With the defense being as good as it was, Michigan, I feel like they're too inexperienced at spots. That's a maybe, but it's a big-time team. I don't know.
Okay, so you're going Miami. I'm going to go quasi South Carolina just because it's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm going Miami.
Okay. Mike in Philly. Where in Philly? Where are you from?
I'm actually on the main line.
Okay.
I live in Ardmore now.
You're right by the golf course.
Yeah, I'm actually like half a mile from the golf course.
Okay. No Penn State questions calling from Philly?
No, I'm actually an Irish fan.
Okay.
So.
Well, this is good. This is good news. We have an Oregon fan that called and an Irish fan now. I'm fine with that.
All right.
Exactly. I'm expecting a big year out of Tommy Heisman. So.
Well, that makes one of you.
I want it so badly just for Ty every week to be like, yeah. I want that every single week from Ty, begrudgingly accepting Tommy Rees's dominance.
I'll have everyone know that I am essentially all in on the anti-Tommy Rees sentiment at this point.
That I'm all in on.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't turn back. Even if he does win the Heisman, I still have to be the naysayer, and it puts me between a rock and a hard place because I'm actually the Notre Dame fan.
Ty, just embrace the good times. Tommy Rees, he's leading Notre Dame back to the national championship. It's a golden era.
He's gonna let us down.
Nothing could go wrong.
No, nothing at all. So, all right, Mike. Thanks for calling.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Mike in Philly, an Irish fan no less, calling from the main line, right down by the Marion Golf Course. That's where they had.
What does the main line mean? Is that like a
just
train
an area
line?
No, I mean it's an area in Philly, and
okay,
one of the more popular areas in Philly.
Would you live in Philadelphia?
I'd live in parts of Philly.
You would live in parts of. I've heard really good things about Philly.
Yeah, I live in parts of Philly. As you know, I'm fairly close to the city, and
right.
I like it down there. It's a nice.
What are the cities in the United States that you would settle down in? Outside of course, beautiful Allentown, Northampton, Bethlehem.
Right, Allentown, PA. Northampton, Bethlehem is one. Beyond that, though, San Diego was just.
It's a good life.
Ugh.
Not a media hub.
No.
But a good life.
Not an anything hub. Do people work there? Like, what is their deal?
It's a good times hub, Ty. It's a good times hub.
I can't imagine living there and getting anything done. So that's probably on the short list, I'd say.
What you get done there is being rich. Or being really poor.
Yeah, San Diego. Austin was fun. Yeah. I enjoyed Austin, and I know it's sort of like this new age like tech hub. Maybe it's because of South by Southwest. I don't know, but Austin's a fun place. You've got the University of Texas there. You've got all the 6th Street stuff. Horrible traffic, though.
6th Street's overrated. Breakfast tacos, though, pretty good.
The traffic, though, was just brutal. Some of the worst I've ever seen. So I'd have to consider that. That would enter into the equation for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
That's
San Diego's probably one.
Montpelier, Vermont.
That's a distant 10th, I'd say.
Okay.
I don't know. You've been more places than I have. What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't live in many places. I would live in California. I would live in New York, Chicago, D.C., and maybe Austin. I don't know if I could stick out Texas. I don't know about that. I love visiting, but I don't know if I could full-time it.
All right. We've got another call on the line. Hello, who's this?
This is Rich from Colorado.
Rich from Colorado.
Is this Rich Orman?
Yes, it is.
Nice. You just tweeted both of us. How's it going, Rich Orman in Colorado?
I couldn't hear you, Dan.
How's it going?
How's it going out there in Colorado?
Oh, it's going great. I just wanted to say to you guys, you've totally changed the way that I go to football games. I used to go to football games and just enjoy the game and enjoy the scenery and the people around. Now I go to a game and I squint my eyes and I look for people wearing, non-relevant jerseys.
And first of all, you're a Colorado fan,
right? That's almost like the first thing I do.
You're a Colorado fan, correct?
I am, in fact, a Colorado fan. It's hard to say these days, yes.
Ty, that's why he can't look at the game and he looks for other people in the crowd.
Well, hey, in fairness, though, he got to have something because he wasn't watching the game the last couple years. Well, I mean, if you're watching that football over the last few years, you are the biggest Colorado fan to ever have walked this earth.
Not only that, I keep renewing my season tickets. It is very strange.
So you're paying for this punishment, no less.
I'm paying out the nose. Yeah.
I would live in Boulder too. To add to our discussion of cities in which we would live, I would live in Boulder, even with Colorado being as terrible as they've been these past couple of years. At least you're still in Boulder. It's not like Colorado football demands people go to games in Lubbock or, Huntsville. It's still Boulder. It's still a good time.
Yeah,
how long have you been in Boulder?
I beg your pardon?
How long have you been in Boulder?
Actually, I don't live in Boulder. I live in beautiful Aurora, Colorado.
Oh, okay, nearby.
Aurora, Colorado. Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been there?
The only time I've ever lived in Boulder is when I was in college.
Okay.
All right.
So what is the realistic output? What am I saying? Outlook. What kind of outlook or output do we have for?
What will satisfy your 2010 expectations?
Satisfy me would be 3 games. 1. I would be ecstatic with 4, and I would be over the top with 5.
What about a bowl game? Is that the end for you? What does that mean?
Ty, you silly goose.
A bowl game, I think, would put me in the hospital.
Okay. Well, then we don't want that, right?
Bowl.
We're not rooting for that then.
No.
Oh, Rich is a long time for a baller. We know Rich well. We don't need any of that.
I'm trying to think when the first time was that you emailed us, Rich. It's been a long time.
The first time I emailed you was actually right after the spring game, I think about 4 years ago, sort of in the Hawkins era, where I compared being a Colorado fan to being a victim in a domestic violence.
I remember that. I have that saved somewhere. Yeah, that was good.
Very little control. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's Colorado. See, here's my the success rate or the measure of success, the bar for Colorado in 2013. I don't even know that it's wins. It's just if they're week in and week out, if they're competitive through halftime, and that's not even supposed to be an insult. If they're competitive in these games, if they're moving chains, if they're completing drives with field goals, even if they lose games 34-17, 34-20, 38-17, but it's 20-10 at halftime, and it's Colorado driving and scoring touchdown to cut it to 7 or 10 points right before halftime. That's a good year. That means you're in games. That means games are entertaining going into the second half. It's essentially by the end of the season, it means games are going to be entertaining going into the third, fourth quarter. I think that's a perfectly acceptable bar, and things are going to it's football. There are going to be injuries. There are going to be weird things happening. If you can do that automatically essentially makes you a 5-win team.
Well, I just want them not to lose to Central Arkansas, which is the second game of the year.
That's fair. That's a reasonable way to go into the season. That is a right way of thinking.
All right, Rich. Well, it's good.
Arkansas State, sure. You're not going to beat Arkansas State. Central Arkansas, I feel good.
Yeah.
I feel good.
Okay. Thanks for having my call, guys.
Take care, Rich.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Okay, that's Rich from Arkansas. My gosh, what am I saying here?
Colorado.
Rich from Colorado. He's been listening for a long time here.
I would live in Boulder. You're 2 hours from everything.
Right.
The weather's pretty decent. College town, good food, outdoors. It's a good life. You acclimate to altitude.
Right.
I feel like that gives you some sort of physical advantage over those living at sea level.
I wouldn't pick anywhere in Florida. And I know there are some people, maybe from like the West Coast, who haven't been to Florida, who might be inclined to say, "Oh, Miami, it's so glamorous," or Tampa, or one of the places down there. Florida this time of year, if you've never been there, you think the humidity's bad here. Try going down there. You're swimming through the air.
The best thing to do on the West Coast is, Ty?
Not be on the East Coast?
It would be to stay on the West Coast. That's the number one thing you could do.
All right. Another caller on the line here. Hello, sir. How are you?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Who's this?
Oh, okay. Joe from Bath.
Joe from Bath. Is this Uncle Joe Colarusso calling?
Everybody's favorite uncle.
How did you get this number?
I just happened to stumble across it.
All right.
I went on your website and I saw a live call and I thought, holy moly, they're doing a live show. I got to call these guys.
You couldn't resist, right?
Hey, you guys got to do this more often. This is great, listening to your callers. I mean, people that listen to your show. I think this is really good. But hey, listen, the guy from Philadelphia, Mike from the main line, he was an Irish fan, and I thought maybe he'd ask you this question, and this is what I want to know. I mean, Notre Dame, I think they kind of surprised everybody by jumping up as high as they did last year, getting to the national championship game. Me personally, I really thought that they didn't stack up with Alabama because, I mean, Alabama's like a pro team. What do you guys see that Notre Dame needs to do to take the next step to get to that level?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, and
to get to the dominant SEC type consistency.
If they can, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the defense, I think the defense is getting there, and if they keep recruiting the way they're recruiting, they'll be in a spot where they're consistent year in and year out, and they should be loaded again this year on the defensive side. That works to their advantage. The problem is on offense and getting the speed in
Tommy
there.
Boy.
No, don't even say Tommy Rees. You know how I react to this. You've seen me.
Tommy Haslam. Yeah.
They got to get speed in there. They need to beat other top-flight teams. And it's good to beat Michigan, and it's good to beat Michigan State and Purdue, but they have to keep beating teams like Oklahoma. They have to beat teams like USC on a more consistent basis. And then they got to do it in a bowl game. I think a lot of it has to do with perception. Obviously, a lot of it has to do with talent. But I think until we're at a point where we start viewing them as a team that can compete with the big boys, the SECs, the top echelon programs elsewhere, you need to be in a spot where you're beating them consistently in bowl games and where you've got the talent that you can hang with them in a close fashion even when you lose. You can't get blown out like you did in the national championship against Alabama. That's not going to do much for your perception. Not at all.
So when you look at Notre Dame, you're more confident in the defense at this point because of the way they've recruited. But on offense, I know obviously you're not happy with the quarterback situation, and I'm kind of like hot and cold with it too. But the quarterback aside, on the offensive side of the ball, where do they need to improve?
Offensively, they've got some questions. They need to figure out first and foremost what their running game's going to be this year. It hurts them a lot that Rees is the quarterback now because he can't do as much. He can't do much. He can't stretch the field. There's some question now about, well, what happens in the passing game now that Tyler Eifert's gone? Because he was such a huge target for Everett Golson last year. What happens there? So they've got some questions as far as the receiving game goes. And then at running back, they lost a few guys from last season. Can George Atkinson III be like the bell cow back? They have some other guys who have come in and who I think will contribute, but as of now, that remains a big question mark. So, they need to get better. And then there's the quarterback thing, which I'm not going to get into because my blood pressure will spike. So
the thing I go for it, Joe.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the thing that kind of annoys me about Notre Dame, given the advantages that they do have and that they can recruit nationally, they can bring in kids from the Midwest, they can obviously bring in kids from Florida when you look at the front seven, the success they've had recruiting there. The big thing to me is offensively, since they are building this depth along the defense, another really nice class last year highlighted by Jalen Smith, Ty.
Yes.
Is the big linebacker coming in.
Sure.
So they've been recruiting well on that side of the ball nationally. It's offensively the same issues that Ty and I have had with LSU these past few years. By the way, an LSU team that has been to multiple and won national championships when you look back at the past 6 or 7 years, and that is identity. So they're recruiting, they have all these big offensive tackles coming in. They have I think this year's class is stocked with some big offensive line talent. Are they putting these road graders in front of Everett Golson or Malik Zaire or other mobile quarterbacks, and then they're trying to run power? Essentially, you don't need a great quarterback if you have a great offensive line. You need a pretty good one to complete play-action passes, and you need that stable of running backs. Greg Bryant, I believe, is a chunkier back that can sort of be a bell cow, as Ty likes to say. It's a matter of saying we're gonna line up 2 tight ends. We're going to keep rotating in running backs. We're not going to make the quarterback to force things or improvise like Everett Golson did. It's a matter of, do you want to be a spread team? Do you want to be a power team? Do you want to, I really hate that Notre Dame looks at their offense as being multiple when they don't need to. They can recruit well enough where they can say, we're going to be a power team, and that's what we're going to go to war with. That's what I want Notre Dame to do on offense.
Alrighty. Well, I don't know how you got this number, but we're going to let you go so some other people can call.
Can I ask you 2 quick questions real quick?
Go ahead. Real quick.
Hey, this is for Dan. How do you think Chip Kelly's, I know you follow college football, but Chip Kelly to the NFL, is he going to make it there? And number 2, is Alabama going to three-peat? And I'll hang up and listen. Have a good show, guys.
All right. See you, Uncle Joe.
Number 1, Chip Kelly's going to be good. I don't know how good this season because I don't really think he has a quarterback. And per my knowledge of the NFL, it's a very quarterback-driven league.
That is what they say, yeah.
He is not going to, despite popular belief, he's not going to run zone reads with Nick Foles or Matt Barkley. I think the big strength of Chip Kelly is and has always been his ability to adapt to the talent that he has. So he is going to conjure up a system with Pat Shurmur. Is that who we were talking about?
Pat
as
Shurmur,
the offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
He is going to figure out a system that takes advantage of tempo, takes advantage of simplicity, and takes advantage of the administrative way with which he gets the most out of players, whether it's practice times, nutrition, physical fitness. He is going to do all of those things. He is going to stick with the hallmarks they did with Oregon, and I feel like he is going to succeed. He's going to surpass expectations this year. I think he could be a playoff team without really knowing the NFL, but I think in 3 years he is going to be very, very good.
Either that or he's going to be the next coach at Texas or Florida State, right?
How dare you, sir?
Just throwing that out there. And second,
Alabama three-peat.
I've been seeing a lot of these posts go around. Who's going to be national champion? How can you possibly bet against Alabama at this juncture? I don't know how you can do it. For me, I know you kind of fall on the other side of the coin here. You think someone else is due. I'm just going to bet against Alabama until further notice.
Bet with Alabama.
Bet with Alabama. What did I say? Against?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, I love Alabama. How do you bet against them? I'm going to bet against them.
No. I'm not betting against them. I'm betting with them.
I agree with you completely philosophically. There is no team, I don't believe, I'm curious about Kevin Hogan, but there is no team that really stands out to me right now as being more complete from the coaching staff on down. I'm a little bit worried about Alabama not just losing what they lost on the offensive line, but also losing their offensive line coach to Chip Kelly. I want to say his name is Jeff Stoutland.
Sure.
They also lose Jeremy Pruitt, who's the new defensive coordinator at Florida State, replacing Mark Stoops. Obviously, we've seen how strong the Alabama secondary has been under Nick Saban, perhaps one of the weaker points, if you can call it that, last season for Alabama. If there is a place in which Alabama is vulnerable this year, it is not necessarily during the regular season, but the SEC East is as strong as it's been, I feel like, or as deep essentially since Nick Saban arrived in Tuscaloosa.
Right.
So you won't necessarily see, and you probably won't see Alabama lose to Arkansas or lose to Ole Miss or lose to Tennessee, any of these teams. But teams like Ole Miss with their tempo and the infusion of talent with Laquan Treadwell and Laramie Tunsil and Robert Nkemdiche, those guys, especially along the defensive line, Ole Miss is very good. Arkansas's defensive line with Chris Smith and Trey Flowers is very good. There are teams that can expose certain things with Alabama that perhaps a team like South Carolina or Florida or Georgia, although probably not Georgia. I don't like that they have to replace essentially everybody except for George Jenkins on the defense. Any of those teams, they can expose things. And, Alabama's been very fortunate injury-wise at quarterback, at running back, at receiver, and to have the best offensive line for 2 straight years in college football. I just feel like the numbers are going to bounce away from Alabama this season.
Wow.
I don't believe in 3 straight years of not being snake bitten.
Okay. Well, that's fair, especially in the SEC, especially in college football.
But the most complete team and the rightful odds-on favorite.
Yeah, okay. Another call on the line. Hello and welcome to the Solid Verbal. How are you?
Hello, how are you doing today?
Good. Who's calling?
This is Alex from Chicago.
Alex from Chicago. What's up, man? How are you?
Not much. I just had a couple questions. One, being from Chicago, I'm a rare Northwestern fan.
Okay.
And I want to know what your thoughts were on how they could do in Big Ten this year, especially they have a tough schedule, but with who they have returning, I think they can be pretty okay. Having to play Ohio State and Wisconsin on the other side of the conference is going to be tough. And the second part was, how do you think Ohio State's going to do with losing these players? obviously losing their star cornerback and Carlos Hyde's going to be a big loss, but I think they can make up for it. I'll hang up and listen, and thanks.
All right. Thank you to Alex again from Chicago. So, two-part question.
Yeah.
Asks first and foremost about Northwestern. Northwestern is a team that I have picked up from you in spots. I get the impression that you're a closet Northwestern fan this year.
I like Northwestern. You like experienced quarterback play with Kane Coulter, not a big dude, somewhere hovering around 6 foot and under 200 pounds, but as dynamic a playmaker as there is, short of Braxton Miller in the Big Ten at the quarterback position. Devin Gardner excites me.
Sure,
that's weird to say now that the phrasing of that.
You're right.
But the Big Ten is not stuffed to the gills with talented quarterbacks. So Kane Coulter intrigues me. At running back, Fenric Mark, which I love saying. He's a little guy, but home run ability.
Sure.
So I like that backfield a lot and really like Pat Fitzgerald as a coach. So there are like the important chunks are there. I want to say Christian Jones is good at receiver. And then Kyle Prater, the 5-star transfer from USC, obviously has the ability, whether or not he can immediately. I want to say he'll be his junior. It's his junior campaign now. Those are the questions. Those are the answers. The question for me is the offensive line. Is there so much ability there? Can time be made to execute these things? Can holes be open? That's, again, a phrasing thing that I am responsible for. Do you have Northwestern's schedule in front of you? Can you pull that up?
I do. At Cal to open up the year. That should be a win.
They're like 10.5-point favorites.
Feels much. Feels a little much, but
this is Cal's first game with Sonny Dykes. It'll be a brand new quarterback going against a good Big Ten team, so I can see it being
okay.
Feasible.
Week after, September 7th, home against Syracuse.
Yeah,
I think they should win that game.
Yeah, they have 2 new coaches to open the season.
Right. Then a brutal stretch before a bye week against Western Michigan and the Maine Black Bears.
Okay, so that's fine.
Then you've got the bye week, and then there's the homecoming game against Ohio State. That one's at home.
Okay.
It's not unforeseen that they could knock off Ohio State there, especially since the game is at home.
That's my game. That's my I just feel that's like my little siren and not so fast sound. That not that going to Evanston is the most difficult thing in the world, but it's a talented enough team. It's a pretty good, I think maybe even an underrated D-line. They were pretty good, if not very good, against the run. Now Ohio State is thinner there. They have, what's his name? DeAndre Wilson, the kid from Texas who spurned Oregon.
Right.
But the D-line's pretty good against the run. And if Ohio State finds themselves in a position, especially without Carlos Hyde, where Braxton Miller is responsible for so much offense, then perhaps. Outside of that, I'm not crazy. There were individual pieces. It was Nick something who played a good lockdown corner, as good as you can expect with the depth on defense at Northwestern. Not crazy about the back four, but I don't know who's going to take advantage of that in the Big Ten. So continue on.
That's the thing. So then at Wisconsin and Camp Randall, the week after Ohio State, there's your letdown game right there. Let's say that they go off and knock off Ohio State. There's your letdown game. That's the game that you bet on Wisconsin.
I think Wisconsin's also a better program.
Wisconsin's a better program, but I'm saying Northwestern, if they were to knock off Ohio State,
yes,
big time letdown spot the next week on the road at Camp Randall.
Wisconsin potentially starting quarterback Tanner McAvoy and the release is strong-arm robbery victim Tanner McAvoy, which is a very weird thing. But luckily, it was just sort of things were stolen and he was not really that injured. So hopefully I think he was a junior college transfer of some repute. So Wisconsin's still very much wide open as for what they're going to look like and who's going to be playing key positions. But yeah, it's winnable. It's Camp Randall, so it's a very difficult place to win, but this is as good a year. Look at all the new coaches that Northwestern is getting.
Yeah.
Well, they're getting Sonny Dykes. They're getting, oh God, who's at Syracuse? I'm blanking right now.
Right.
They're getting Sonny Dykes, a new Syracuse situation. They're getting Gary Anderson at Wisconsin. It's a good time to have an experienced offense, at least skill position-wise, for Northwestern.
Yeah, well, then you get into the whole Big Ten schedule.
Which is what hit me.
In addition to Wisconsin and Ohio State, Minnesota at home, on the road against Iowa, which for whatever reason could end up being tricky just because it's Iowa on the road.
Iowa's going to be better this year.
Yeah, at Nebraska.
Very difficult place to win.
Close out the season, home against Michigan, home against Michigan State, on the road at Illinois. So
that's a tough schedule.
It's
outside of that first month, which isn't too bad. It's pretty backloaded. The Michigan schools, Ohio State, Wisconsin, on the road at Iowa, on the road at Nebraska, on the road at Wisconsin. These are all correct things that I'm repeating.
Yeah.
That's a tricky schedule. So stay healthy, Northwestern.
Stay healthy. Yeah, stay healthy.
Yeah.
And his second question,
Ohio State,
pertained to Ohio State. Given the news we discussed a little bit earlier about Carlos Hyde and some others potentially being in trouble, how does that affect Ohio State? I am still all in on this team going 12-0.
Oh, good God.
I am not saying there won't be scares along the way.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't feel great about any of them being losses. All right?
Northwestern, Purdue.
Northwestern, I can at least see the logic behind it. All right. I think Ohio State's the better football team. But I can at least understand that logic. Beyond that, though, again, I'll read through this schedule very quickly.
Yeah.
We can lump Northwestern in there if you want. We can lump Michigan, obviously Michigan, to close the year into this discussion as well. But here are the other games, all right? Real quick. Home against Buffalo, home against San Diego State, at Cal, home against Florida A&M, home against Wisconsin, home against Iowa, home against Penn State, at Purdue, which I know is a mini trap game that you've discussed.
Western Lafayette.
At Illinois, and home against Indiana. Then they close out the year at Michigan. Not a lot of losses on that schedule. Is it a lot to ask for a team to essentially go 24-0 over the last 2 years? Yeah, probably.
25-0, 26-0. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess if you're saying regular season, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a tall order by any stretch. But I'm just looking at these names here. There is not a lot of firepower on this schedule. If they slip past Northwestern, maybe that Purdue game, maybe Purdue could battle them with their new coach. But honestly, I feel pretty good about this. I'm not going to back off this at all. I'll take the over on the 10.5 bet.
All right, so the running back depth chart after Carlos Hyde, you have another big bruiser type in Rod Smith, but a big dude.
Rod Smith.
Jordan Hall is 5'9", 200-ish. So good size, 5'8", 200, somewhere in there. I would mention it's not DeAndre, it's just Dontre Wilson.
Sure.
But he is going to be more sort of hybrid-y in that sort of DeAnthony Thomas, Percy Harvin, some out of the backfield, some through the air. Corey Brown, of course, is back. So there is still things to like about this offense without Carlos Hyde. I'm just... it's the same thing about being terrified about Braxton Miller. I would assume he's going to have more polish as a passer, given a summer with the playbook, given a summer with reps to, the 7-on-7 with the team as the entrenched guy. They've recruited very well. The offensive line is in good shape. Defensively, yeah, Bradley Roby was going to be I don't know what his status is at the time we're recording this, but he did get in trouble. But I don't know who's going to take advantage. Same situation as the Northwestern deal. I think there's still question to me about Ohio State's defensive line, that they're counting on rotation guys without starting experience, without dominant playing time. But Noah Spence and Adolphus Washington could be very good. I just 12-0, 24-0.
It's tough. It's not easy.
It's hard, man. It is hard to do.
All right. Well, we're coming near the end here. We could probably sneak one more call in if someone wants to dial in. By the way, Dan, Syracuse's new coach is Scott Schaefer.
That's right. Yes.
And I will admit that I needed to look that up because...
How many T's in Scott?
2 T's in Scott.
Okay, well, doesn't Scott Loeffler, the much maligned former Auburn, where did he end up, by the way, Scott Loeffler?
I have no idea.
I just saw this. He ended up, I'm looking at this right now. I think it's 1 T, first of all. He's the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. at Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Logan Thomas. That's what I saw.
Right. What could go wrong?
One T. Okay, so Scott Schaefer, the new coach at Syracuse.
Scott Schaefer. Both the T's are at the end, just in case you're wondering. And
perfect.
I have to admit, I needed to look that up because I blanked. I thought Doug Marrone right away, and obviously he is with Buffalo now. He's not at Syracuse anymore, but Scott Schaefer taking over. We'll see how they fare against Northwestern.
I'm going to give you the flip side of, and I forget who asked this question,
Yeah.
about which team would come out of nowhere to compete for the national championship.
Yeah.
Which team is going to come out of very much somewhere to not compete for the national championship?
Oh, you're going the flip side.
Yeah. The flippy dippy. Who free falls?
Wow. LSU.
Are they really? Do you feel like they're in the mix? I'm going to question that pick.
Okay.
They're not a favorite. They're not a top 5 preseason team or top 8 preseason team.
Okay.
I'm holding your feet to the filer. The filer. Tyler.
Trying to think who else is in the top.
So
8.
this is you have to choose from.
Yeah, go ahead. Who do I have to choose from?
You have. I'm going to get the presumed top few odds-on teams. Whatever. Alabama.
No.
Oregon.
No.
Ohio State.
No.
Georgia. Texas A&M. Stanford.
I was gonna say Georgia, and I didn't know if they were in the equation there, if they were an option.
Yeah, I think they're the favorite. They're the defending SEC East champions. I think they're the favorite to repeat as SEC East champ, given how much they return on offense. And if you are a favorite in the division in the SEC, I feel like that puts you in the mix. And I would say in Florida.
Is Florida in there? Should they be in there?
Yeah, they went 11-2 last year, 11-1 going into the bowl game.
The
BCS
defense again will probably keep them in the hunt. All right, we
lose
know this.
big pieces.
They do.
But that offensive line is very good. They've got a bunch of good young running backs, and if we've seen anything from Will Muschamp and Brent Pease, is they can figure out how to win ugly and with a good offensive line and good set of running backs.
I just had a hard time taking Florida seriously last season. Then, of course, there was a Florida State game late in the year, and I was like, whoa. The fourth quarter they had in that game was incredible. The way they just
with
worked
that much
Florida.
Speed on defense.
They worked Florida State. And then in the bowl game, they didn't want to be there. And so it's, again, I'm like, which Florida team should I expect now as we move forward? They've got talent. I like the talent they have, but I don't feel like I would even lump them in that early season contenders list. They need to show me something first.
Here's who Florida beat last year with a below-average Jeff Driscoll and
Texas
very
A&M.
little in the way of receiving options.
Say Texas A&M.
Texas A&M,
Yep.
LSU, South Carolina, Florida State.
I know.
That's pretty good, Ty. They went to College Station. Granted, it was a lesser experienced Johnny Manziel. To College Station and win. They beat LSU at home in one of the uglier games, sure. They beat Vanderbilt in an ugly game. That's what they did. They beat Louisiana Lafayette in an ugly game. They beat Missouri in an extraordinarily ugly game. But the turnover game, the fact that they're able to turn teams over so prolifically, like that South Carolina game, 44-11.
I know. I know what I'm saying too. I know what I'm saying. Maybe
you
without
you can win double-digit games without being a complete team.
Yeah, and guess what? The great irony is that I can talk all the smack I want about Florida last season and not taking them seriously, but Florida beat better teams ugly than Notre Dame beat ugly, and I was singing all kinds of praises about Notre Dame last season.
Yeah,
it isn't. It's not even close. All right, Pitt, BYU. Are you kidding me? Compared to the South Carolinas and the A&Ms of the world.
LSU.
I'm talking myself into a corner here. I realize that, but I guess it's just difficult. It's like the LSU thing, right? When LSU had some of its great teams, a lot of those wins were ugly. Mm-hmm. All too many of those were ugly. It was difficult for some people to take them seriously because they couldn't tune in and feel like they were watching a consistent team on both sides of the ball. But they found ways to win. They did it with defense. They did it with turnovers. They got big plays when they needed it, sometimes from Tyrann Mathieu. And they won some football games. So I don't know what I'm saying. We've got one more caller on the line here. This is going to be our last one
Uno más
of the evening. Hello, who's this?
This is Hunter, a.k.a. the C-Bus Verballer for you guys.
The C-Bus Verballer. Are you an Ohio State fan?
Yeah, and I'm going to try not to sound like a complete apologist. So,
What's up?
Take this with a grain of salt.
What's up?
I'm going to echo kind of what you said, Ty. The running back depth, if, and right now it's an if, he's just suspended from the team. He wasn't dismissed yet. But if Carlos Hyde is gone, the depth at running back is still fantastic. I mean, I know Dan kind of scoffed at, or you scoffed at Rod Smith, but Rod Smith, Jordan Hall, Ezekiel Elliott, Beyonce Dunn. I mean, there's plenty of depth at running back. So I'm completely on board with that. The running back situation is not going to be the problem. Well, obviously, you guys have already said it. Bradley Roby is a much bigger impact if anything happens to him. Marcus Ball and the D-line, Gardner, who got dismissed. Obviously, those aren't going to affect anything. But I don't think it's as dire as, the initial reaction wants to be. I do agree with Ty that I think 12-0 is highly possible, and I'm thinking the game, and you guys kind of touched on it, is going to be Purdue. Purdue will be the game that will be the trip-up game.
Well, it could happen. Yeah. It could happen. And the logic, I think, is there. If you're looking at this as objectively as possible, the logic is there. You can at least see why someone might think that game could be a bit of a stumbling block. All right, I get the logic there too. I would point out, again, I'll defend myself here a little bit, Dan. Yeah. Braxton Miller rushed for 1,271 yards last year, 13 touchdowns.
He very much did.
You lose Carlos Hyde. He had close to 1,016 touchdowns of his own. That's a big sliver of your offense. A big sliver of your offense. But, again, your offense is Braxton Miller. We talked about this, 2-3 shows ago. Your offense is Braxton Miller. You keep him healthy, you keep yourselves in the football game, in the hunt. And so, to our caller's point, I think there is enough depth that you might be able to recoup some of those numbers elsewhere. Even if it's not one guy, even if it's by committee, I think you can still do it, and I think you can still have potentially an undefeated season.
Yeah, I don't think the running back depth is the big issue. I just think it's week in and week out playing with that pressure, and the combination of the ball needing to leave Braxton Miller's hands more just because he needs to take fewer hits and learn to distribute a little bit more than sort of running around and then keeping it. The combination of that, losing Carlos Hyde, granted the depth is there, but Urban Meyer, I don't believe ever having a 1,000-yard running back during his coaching career, as weird as that sounds.
Right.
I think that the combination is worrisome, that he has not really, when you look at what he did with Tim Tebow and how much abuse he took physically and was capable of doing, and what Alex Smith did at Utah, you would hope that the offense would evolve, and Carlos Hyde showed the ability to be that workhorse, to be that bell cow. And the other guys, while good, have not proven that they are 20-plus carry backs per game. That's all.
Hunter, how concerned are you as an Ohio State fan, given some of the news we saw come out today? Maybe not so much about whether or not this team can win games, but perhaps to the earlier point that Dan and I discussed about whether or not
culture.
Whether or not this reflects on any culture under Urban Meyer or within Ohio State.
That's the part that bothered me. Is it comes off as more of, oh boy, here we go again with Urban.
Yeah.
And again, I'm trying to be the balanced guy and say, okay, let's let due process take its course, and it already, it's whatever time it broke at 10 a.m. Oh my God, he hit a girl, and now they're saying, whoa, maybe not, maybe it was in, we obviously don't know all the facts yet, and again, I'm not trying to be an apologist, and I understand that. Again, it is frustrating that, here we go again, Urban is the quick mantra, and I love you guys, love the show, and, the guests on here are great, and Clay Travis was, immediately on top of it, not necessarily trolling Buckeye Nation, but certainly
sure he was
took an interest,
enjoying poking the stick at, Buckeye Nation, and, people, of course, respond because, obviously, not being a native of Ohio or a native of Columbus, I think I can take that step back and say, okay, yeah, this bothers me, but let's take a breath first and see what really happens.
Well, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair vantage point.
If I can touch on two things real quick, I know you guys want to end the show.
Sure, go for it.
The reason why Purdue is going to be the problem is in the last 2 years they've had to go to overtime against Purdue, and obviously Robert Marve out of nowhere beats them 2 years ago, and then last year, thanks to Kenny Guyton's, last-minute heroics, the Buckeyes win that one. And so that's why I'm just very, very concerned about the Purdue game.
That's fair.
The Northwestern night game doesn't bother me at all. Purdue will be the one that's the big red target on the schedule where I think the Buckeyes will trip up.
You have something in common with Dan.
All right, and Braxton Miller, I'm concerned about Braxton, that Braxton needs to know the difference between being injured and just being hurt, and I think he needs to learn how to play hurt.
Wow.
I think if he gets hurt, if he gets hit, and it's obviously a guy who wasn't hitting him in high school, and granted he's a junior now, to where he should be able to be used to be able to getting hit by a bigger guy and being okay, that didn't feel good, or okay, wow, there's really something wrong, and that's where I think my concern with Braxton is.
Okay, needs to learn how to play hurt. There you go.
That's tough, but yeah.
Those are fighting words. All right. Well, Hunter and Seabus, thanks for calling in. Appreciate
thanks, guys.
Appreciate your listenership. Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right. Wow. Play hurt, huh?
Yeah, I can't play hurt. I can barely do anything hurt. So who am I to demand that of other people? But yes, there is. I don't know with Braxton Miller necessarily, but people's threshold for pain and performance varies, and there are people that are a little too soft, and I'm a lot too soft. So I am in no position to comment, but it seems that if the offense is going to revolve around him to the extent, and I really don't think it will, that it did last season, he is going to have to figure out how to gather himself while wounded.
All right. Well, big thanks to all the callers who helped us do this tonight. I think it was kind of fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was fun. Absolutely.
We'll do this again at some point as maybe we get closer to the season or in season. I don't know. We'll see what we have on our agenda. But again, big thanks to everyone who called in. I know just from looking at the logs here, Dan, looks like a lot of other people tried to call in as well. So if we weren't able to get you on, we'll let you know the next time we do this. And also don't forget, as the season gets rolling, we will reopen that reverb line so that you can call in and leave your voice messages. As the games are in progress, let us know what you think about all the action on the field.
I'm excited for this season.
I am too.
I tune out a lot over the summer just because there's so much noise. But in the past few weeks and sort of reviewing everything, studying up, looking at the schedule, thinking about Saturdays in general, I'll be out on the road a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll be set up in New York. Hopefully we can get you in New York a little bit to watch on Saturdays. Obviously we're doing our show on Sundays, reviewing the week's action, but I just like being around you, Ty.
No,
I like
Dan.
your musk. I like your sensibilities. I like the way you turn your nose up at the frou-frou food that I eat.
The frou-frou.
I like that.
Okay.
I'm going to feed you tacos. We're going to have a good time with Celebrity Hot Tub, Bobby Big Wheel.
All right.
We'll get all sorts of New York notables, have a good time, get some smart people on the show. It's going to be a good time.
I'm down, man. I told you. I'm good. We'll make it happen. That works for me.
Woo!
All right. Well, again,
that's all I got.
Big thanks to all the callers. You're going to be out of pocket on Wednesday?
I am traveling up to a West Coast. Kevin is getting married.
Okay.
How about that?
Do we need to make a wedding pool for this? Do you need my help?
I'm going to need your you've probably sent it to me in the past, your wedding odds, your wedding spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a look. And I swear on all that is Sundress that I do not have proprietary insider information.
Okay.
Because I am in the wedding party. But other than that, I know nothing about silverware, songs. I actually do know a little about song selection, but not as it relates to anything on the playlist. I don't know about anybody who's going to cry or puke or dance. I don't know any of these things.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure you have a copy of this, and then you can play the home game if you so desire.
Listen. Why don't we take live calls during the wedding? Why don't we do that?
You want to do that just to get out?
Yeah. No, not really. No, that would be terrible.
That'd be a little weird. All right.
Yeah.
Big thanks again to everyone. I will be back on Wednesday. Have a nice little show planned here. We'll talk some odds and ends in and around college football. In the meantime, solidverbal@gmail.com is the email address. Hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/solidverbal. Please, if you have not liked the Facebook page, go out there and do it. It helps us out. Also, we are on Twitter at solidverbal. verbal as well. Feel free to send us tweets. For that guy over there, back on the left coast, back where it all started, for myself, Ty, here in good old Allentown, thanks again for tuning in. Catch you all in a few days. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace!